Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Blazer Victory Podcast. John Duncan here, and of course, I'm joined as always with both of my co-hosts, Darian Smith and Jimmy Marion, back for an exciting game recap episode of the Blazer Victory Podcast for once. But before we go any further, this game recap episode and all game recap episodes of the Blazer Victory Podcast this season are brought to you by Cahaba Brewing Company, and we're going to spotlight their blonde beer, staple in this household, staple in a lot of households. So if you have not tried the Cahaba Blonde, make sure it's very widely available. You don't have to go to the tap room. You can probably find it anywhere, like grocery store or whatever. But we definitely encourage you to go down to the tap room and let them know that you heard about Cahaba on the Blazer Victory Podcast. That means a lot to us. And shout out to YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at BlazerPod. Again, the continuous track to 500. If your wife, girlfriend, husband, boyfriend has a YouTube account, go ahead and subscribe to us on that account. That'll help get our numbers up too. So we'll get to 500 eventually. So, but a game happened yesterday, Senior Day in Protective Stadium, as our UAB Blazers take it to Rice. That was so good just to see UAB obliterate Rice. I feel like that's never happened. That was damn well exciting to see Saturday at Protective Stadium as UAB beats Rice 40-14, shutting out the Rice Owls for 3 quarters. Rice only scored their 14 points in the first quarter, and to hold Rice scoreless through second, third, fourth quarter, kudos to the defense. And let's start there, guys. How, outside of that, really the opening drive where Rice kind of had that long catch and ended up scoring on that drive, outside of that, UAB's defense kind of dominated from that point against the Rice Owl offense. And I know it wasn't a great Rice Owl offense, but hey, E.J. Warner's their quarterback. They've got some playmakers. They preach intellectual brutality, to try to run it down the middle, run it
that
up.
That is the lamest slogan anybody, like, you cornball. Like, you nerd.
I know. Well, I mean, it is Rice. Yeah. But yeah, Darren, give us your thoughts,
here, bro. Come on, like, how lame is that? Like, come on, man.
Hey,
I'm sorry, Rice. Rice is catching strays from me right now, but that isn't lame. If that was UAB, I'd be like, no, I'm not for them. We are into intellectual brutality. Like, come on, like, no, come on, man. But yeah, go ahead.
I love it, man. Well, hey, Darren, give us some of your initial thoughts just about the UAB defense in particular, and we'll get to the offense and Lee Beebe and Milliner, but just talk a little bit about what you saw yesterday out of this UAB defense, and really we haven't seen at all this season.
I like that. It was the first time that we've been able to bend but don't break. I feel like that's kind of been something that, like, okay, you may be able to get some yards and whatever, but it was the red zone defense that was pretty impressive. Their first drive, you worried because they just marched down the field really quick. We responded. It's like we got our stuff together, right? And then just that. So the whole Adrian Maddox pick six was crucial. But also, that just goes to show you they have an interim head coach right now. But that goes to show you, like, tendencies of, like, guys that need experience as a head coach. As the head guy, I probably would have kicked that field goal. They had no timeouts. They only had about 6 seconds left to, like, run a play, 8 or 6 seconds up in there. You're on the 2-yard line. The defense knows you're not gonna We knew that you're not gonna risk running the ball because if you get stopped, you can't kick a field goal. You can't call a timeout. Not enough time. So you're gonna. The defense knows you have to throw on the 2-yard line. And if you know the tendencies of your quarterback, E.J. Warner, much like Kitna, can be a kind of a gunslinger, right? That kind of can just go with it. I was sitting there thinking before the play, I was like, I know they're gonna kick this field goal. This is way too risky. And I kept telling myself that, like, ooh boy, all right, y'all lining up. I mean, and he threw that ball and that pick, and I looked, I said, he ain't got nobody in front of him. As soon as he caught it, I was like, oh wow. That right there ended the game. Adrian Maddox is a wonderful player. I've talked about him all year. I'm glad that he got to have that moment. I hope that we're able to keep him. He's a junior this year. I expect a couple of guys to be hitting the portal after this Charlotte game. I hope he's not one of them. He's a big time impact player for us. If we can hold on to him, Bracy and Sarai Bryant, I like how our safety group look for next year, right? But that's a big if, because if I'm a P4 guy, P4 program, I'm gonna be looking, and if I'm looking to, kind of raid a UAB program that's probably in the down and outs right now, he's one of the first guys I'm gonna look at, right? Is Adrian Maddox. But even if that is true, he deserves it. So I'm glad that he got to have that moment. He gets that recognition that he deserves for the energy and the passion that he's brought all year to this team. I saw just the defense making plays. We were sound. The intellectual brutality didn't work out this time. Rice likes to play this ball control type of offense to where they run the ball, play action. They didn't really, I don't know, it's like they never really got going all the way like they usually do. They usually get into a rhythm. They kind of keep you off balance. And to a certain degree, it was a lot of penalties. I was like, this game is kind of turning out to like who can F up the least. Like that's what it started turning into. And I think we kind of won that battle. And a 40 to whatever score it was, I can't remember. 40 to what?
14.
Mm-hmm. It was 14.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I thought it was 18. I gave him 4 more points. But yeah, man, it's just shout out to our defense, man. I felt like the offense finally had their back with the play calling, and we'll get around to that. But I felt like we had balanced play calling to where we didn't put them in a bad position. And then we put pressure on the other team's offense to kind of catch up and make mistakes. And it caused them to make mistakes, or it caused them to press. So now our defense can actually play. Offense and defense work together. If it's one thing that Brian Vincent taught you, was like they play this version of offense to where it helps their defense. And we kind of did that also this game. But we'll talk. We'll get around to the offense, but I'm happy the defense had some help from the offense and special teams this time.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback off that, I'm glad that we're starting with the UAB defense because they certainly had a dominant day in this ball game. It was only the second time this season in which UAB has held the opponent to under 30 points, and UAB is 2-0 in those matchups, the other time being against Tulsa. And we'll talk a little bit about turnovers because turnovers has been an issue for UAB, but the UAB defense really forced Rice into some costly mistakes. And it was, again, only the second time in which UAB this season had not turned the ball over more than the opponent. UAB had 17 points off of those turnovers compared to obviously 0 for Rice. And again, UAB is 2-0 when they force the team into more turnovers than them. So, and again, that was against Tulsa, by the way. But just kind of a couple of other quick little thoughts. Michael Moore, having only played the second half in this game, to come out and he finished with 9 tackles. He had 1.5 tackles for loss. He was all over the place in a senior day for him. So that was really cool to see. You've touched on Adrian Maddox. You were just talking about Darren about hopefully we can hold on to Adrian Maddox. Maddox is a guy that started out at Alabama State, right? And then he came to UAB, and then potentially he could go finish his last year elsewhere, made me think about B.J. Mays. You remember B.J. Mays started out at Incarnate Word and then came to UAB for a year, was able to get to Texas A&M, and I was watching him getting a pick last night against Auburn, so shout out to him. But just some other quick notes on the UAB defense. So UAB defense held Rice only averaging 4.6 yards per game. I think that tied a season high in that particular category. The UAB secondary had 10 pass breakups, which was a season high. And then, Darian, you touched base on the red zone, a moment ago. Rice was only 2 of 5 in the red zone, I believe, 40% scoring percent. So anyways, the UAB defense had a heck of a day, and it was nice to see that because it's certainly been somewhat of a struggle, but kudos. And then one more note I forgot to say. This was actually, we've talked all the time about second halves for UAB. John, I think you mentioned earlier about Rice only scoring their 14 in the first. UAB outscored Rice, their opponent, by 13 in the second half, and that's something that we haven't seen, right? So you got to give your flowers to an all-around team effort that resulted in them not only winning the game, but also taking care of that second half as well.
Yeah, 100%. Really good to see. We were up at half and we were kind of holding our breath. It was like, we still got to play a second half, and second half is kind of doomed UAB these last 2 years. But, credit to the guys and just sticking to it, sticking to the game plan. And Darian, I believe you alluded to it earlier, but, kind of playing complementary football on the offensive side of the ball to go along with this defense. And, I know we talked about the big Adrian Maddox pick six to end the first half. Very reminiscent of the Grayson Cash pick six FAU a few years ago to end the first half. I believe it was that same side and that same sideline. So that was really cool to see. But shout out to, again, Michael Moore led the team in tackles after only playing a half of football. Another credit goes to Tyjon Jones, the Youngstown State transfer, getting a pick as well. But yeah, just solid effort on the defensive side of the ball. But we can kind of also transition to the offensive side of the ball, playing complementary football. And what did they do? What were we saying a couple weeks ago, guys, on that UConn game recap episode? What should they have done or continue to do in the second half of that ball game?
Feed the beast.
Feed the freaking beast. And Lee Beebe, what was his stat line? Had a hell of a day. 16 carries for 161 yards, 2 TDs. Had that 48-yard touchdown on the Wildcat formation. Guys, I'm saying it too. Like, we're not going to do a Charlotte preview. But if UAB can continue to run the damn ball like they did in this Rice game, and Charlotte has a worse rush defense than Rice. So if UAB can run the damn ball with BB this Saturday and limit turnovers on the offensive side of the ball, I think Trent Dilfer picks up his first road win as a UAB coach. So, but not to get too ahead of ourselves, I just wanted to mention that because we're not doing a preview for Charlotte, but I'm just saying, what's the meaning? I'm just saying. But yeah, it was really good to see Lee BB have a hell of a day. It was really good. Corey Milliner, even though he got ejected, had a hell of a game. he's had, I believe we're in the text thread, our group text. Corey Milliner, these last couple games in particular, like to our Rice and Memphis, like, folks are kind of loading Amari Thomas and Cam Shanks, but Corey Milliner, he's had a hell of a good couple of games. And if we can hold on to him too, that spells good things for the 2025 season as well.
He's had 3 straight games with 50 or more yards, and in 2 of those 3 games he scored. So in this game, 6 catches, 90 yards in the score. So he's certainly, as we talked about, having that breakout. And that's really good to see because I remember sitting at the 205-day event and hearing the coaching staff just really rave about this guy that they really think that they found a diamond in the rough. Don't recall the number of offers that he had coming out, but they were giving him some comps to some talented Alabama receivers. He's still got a lot of play left, eligibility-wise, and so we're starting to see that potential just scratching the surface of what he could probably contribute to this UAB offense.
Yeah, he was one of those late finds. I don't think he had any offers. I remember the story about him. about how the only reason they got on to him because it was a DB.
Yes.
That was like, hey man, this dude is the guy that really gave me trouble. I can't remember which DB that was we were recruiting, but they was like, hey, y'all need to check out this Milliner kid.
Mm-hmm.
He's the truth, and then that's how the UAB staff got on to him and they offered him. And then talking to somebody close to the staff, they talked about how much of a 180 he's done. Like they was like, no, he didn't. At the beginning of the year, he wasn't like this. They were like, he has worked for his opportunities. And now what you're seeing now is like a guy that's really learned and progressed and developed along the way, and he has really worked himself that route he ran when he was one-on-one with that DB. That was sick. It was like a whole bunch of pressure coming. And he had to win. The whole thing was your one-on-one. It was no reads. It's not enough time to go through the reads. It was Corey, you got to win. It was a quick double move. I was like, whew. When he did that, I was like, yeah. He might really be arriving or have arrived. I mean, he's a redshirt freshman.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we should. I don't know. Amari, I don't know if he really played this game. I don't know if they said he had an ankle injury or something. I know they said he was dealing with that. If I'm looking at that toward the end of the year, honestly, like if I'm keeping it 100. I'm like, yeah, especially if you don't really play this Charlotte game, I ain't got to say nothing. You can start putting it together. You know what I'm saying? But he's kind of earned that. It's going to be his second year. He hasn't had a red shirt year. So, he'll be going into his junior year, 2 losing seasons. I mean, I wouldn't be mad if he got he got that Ole Miss offer or something like that. The dude is good enough to shine. He's good enough to go to any program and really do his thing. So if he get that bag, I was talking to a coach yesterday, a coach at a prominent high school over here in Hoover in basketball, and he was telling me some of the numbers these kids are getting in NIL, and holy moly, he's connected to the football program too, to prominent high school football programs. These guys are getting like 250 from a collective for 12 months. That's how the contracts work. It's not just there for 12 months and then you can re-back up. Guys, I love UAB, but I am from the hood. If I was at UAB and the school offered me 500 for 12 months, I love you, UAB. Hotty toddy out of it.
Hey, I was gonna say, bro, for real, like if we had another podcast that offered me $250 to cover their team for 12 months, I might be like, Jimmy, Darian, we might need to have some conversations.
I'll be like, bro, throw me 3 bands. Like
I got you, bro. I got you.
But I would understand. Yeah. You should be happy for these guys. Jimmy alluded to it earlier. Like, hey man, like he was talking about BJ Mays and whatnot. Listen, Texas A&M is known for throwing that money around. I know BJ Mays got his bag and he's making plays. Right. You know what I'm saying? So, especially if you're coming from a program that's been losing, we have been losing. We've been losing badly. It's been bigly. So, but if you can leverage that and you can make something of that situation for the best for yourself, especially if it's big money to change the life of your family, don't hesitate. Don't feel bad about it. And as a fan base, we shouldn't feel bad for these guys doing what's best for them and their family because they come from positions like I came from. And so I understand. Trust me, I love you guys. I'm out. You know what I'm saying? So Amari, if I'm reading the tea leaves, maybe. I don't know about Shanks though. Honestly, this was his first year really being able to play a breakout. I would be very happy if we are able to keep Shanks and Milliner. I really like Xavier Daisy. Yeah. I think we would have a core. I mean, I think this has been the most open secret, not talked about things. I think Zeno is gone. I actually think BB stays. I think BB gets the opportunities. He's shining. I think BB stays here. Speaking of that, especially if the coaching staff calls a game like they did, let's talk about this real quick too. That game was different. John alluded to it. He said we kind of got out of our own way. We actually just ran. We did what was working. It ain't like he got a whole bunch of carries. He's got 16 carries.
Right.
He averaged, what's that? That is an average of 10.1 yards per carry.
Yeah.
I think it's a no-brainer. And then guess what? It wasn't a cutesy get into a formation with 4 offensive linemen.
Oh my God.
You know, it wasn't. It was zone right. It was the BV special. It was the BV plus Debo special, right?
BVBB.
It was zone right, zone left. We're not getting too cute because guess what? It was working. You don't have to. If it's working, you know why we got mad with BV, because it wasn't working sometimes. It's like we get into the second half, it's like 2 yards, -1 yards, 3 yards. We're like, dude, please, let's mix it up. They're loading the box. Now this time it was like it finally felt like whoever was calling the plays, if it was Trent overriding Moore, I don't know what was going on, you know. But if that's the truth, if that was what was happening, it seemed like he just got out of the way. And it was
wouldn't you say that's kind of growth, Darren? Wouldn't you say that that's learn, or I guess it is growth? You know, if we're speculating here, because I hadn't heard anything about this game. Now I had heard from sources from prior games that Dilfer was calling plays and overriding more. And I mean, I know that happens everywhere because, you know, the head coach can butt in from time to time and say, hey, no, let's do this. But from my opinion, I think this was a majority Mort called game.
And that would make sense, right? Because Trent just had the neck surgery.
Yeah.
So that would make sense. I think Jimmy alluded to it in the text thread when he said that more likely he probably had a little less to do with it this week because he had the surgery. So probably was more had his play calling. I just know the big difference because what was the game? It wasn't Memphis. Well, who did we play right before Memphis?
UConn.
It was the UConn game. That game, when we were up and we were just throwing the ball, when the run game was working, and it's like, it's kind of like, you know what? No, this is how we're going to win. This is the look we're going to. A lot of those play calls was like, dude, what are we doing? You know, and it's crazy when the whole fan base can call it out. So that was happening, but just to see it was a complete 180 this game. It was the second half. We probably did like 8 straight runs at one point in the second half in the third quarter, I believe.
Hell, they held the ball for like UAB had like a 7-minute drive, didn't that happen? A 7 or 8 minute drive, like just ground and pound, man. Yeah.
It culminated with a touchdown, right?
Yep.
But even if that culminated with a field goal, we're still up. We still had our defense gets rest. We still score and we still put pressure on the offense versus some dramatic ass turnover that gives the ball to the other team and they don't even have 40 yards to drive and then they get a quick touchdown within 1 minute and that's how it snowballs. And now our quarterback is pressing again. It was kind of like knowing your team, knowing that, hey, our quarterback can turn the ball over. He has talent, but he has to improve on his ball security. True. Why continue to put him in a position, right? Oh, King. Oh, my God. He put the King on the screen. King
Jonah DeLonga, man. Hey, best field goal kicker in the nation.
John just put, if you're audio only, John just put, Jonah DeLonga's stats up here. Oh, my God. That is so beautiful. Look at those stats, man. What's that? The dude only missed 1 field goal. What was that field goal? Was that UConn?
It was in a garbage time. What was it?
We were up. It must have been Tulsa. Was it?
I think
Tulsa,
it was
maybe?
Tulsa. Yeah, there was like 2 minutes
late.
left. Yeah.
Yeah.
How long was that field goal he missed?
It was like 40 something. It wasn't like super long. It was just weird, like situationally. I mean, he hits it when it's clutch and when it matters. He was just saving when he was going to miss one, so he just missed it when it didn't matter. We're okay with that.
Hey, Jonah, my man, was chilling on the sideline talking about, oh wait, you want me to go in again? Oh,
yeah,
all right.
He was surprised.
Yeah.
Man, it was the holder's fault. That's how I see it. I think
it's the holder's fault.
Bad snap, bad hold.
Yeah.
Well, now that we're on special teams, how about Solomon Beebe's kick return to set up? Was that the second? Was that the first touchdown or the second touchdown?
I think it was the first, wasn't it?
I think it was the
we were down
first.
7-0.
That's right, because Rice had scored their first touchdown, and we're thinking like everybody in the stadium, the 100 people that were there were like, "Oh man, this ain't gonna be good, man." I'm thinking about like, all right, let's just go ahead and
Hey,
don't exaggerate. 100 people, John. That's exaggeration. My friend.
What was the official attendance?
It's
16,000. Yeah,
that's
paid. It's paid paid. Yeah, paid
and the
attendance.
band and Blaze, the players. Hey, John had those luxury box seats, or he was in the stadium club, I should say.
Yeah. Hey, shout out to Kevin. Yeah, I got some club seats and to tailgate with the alumni atop a cantina. So I had 3 buffets before the game.
Well, in all fairness, 15,000 of those fans were walking around the concourse, and then they were outside tailgating.
Oh yeah, that's what it was, man.
It was 15. It was like 83 people there. I said, man, this is like a family reunion. That's what it was like.
You did, when we were texting, yeah.
I know we joke and it's cool, but like this is what we always talk about at the beginning of the season, right? Like we got to win game 2 and got to get some momentum, because when you get every year it happens. You have 25 to 30,000 on that Thursday night opener, and then we lose a couple games, and you can't afford like. I think I saw Jacksonville State. I believe Jacksonville State hosted Sam Houston State. And I'm just going off memory here. I'm pretty sure it was like 8th straight for Jacksonville State, and big game. And they had like 16K. When you get to November and you're not a power conference school, and people have the option to go watch these big old matchups on TV late in the season, it's a little bit chillier or whatever. Like you're just going to struggle, even if we were 8-2, if you're not playing anybody. So you can't like have the type of season that UAB unfortunately has had, and then that's why it's fun to just laugh at it, because it is what it is at this point. So hopefully next year they get off to a better start.
Yeah, and I know sooner or later probably we don't have time, but as y'all know, Tulsa dismissed Kevin Wilson.
Yeah. So
that just leaves UAB. There's no more Spider-Man memeing.
Yeah.
We can't. There's nobody to point to. We're the only program, that got that second year head coach that's done awful to us. So if we're gonna ride this different train out, you talked about growth, John.
Mm-hmm.
Do we believe we've grown? I believe that he had to go through a mass humbling. I believe I'm just gonna just say it what I believe. I thought he was arrogant. I thought he coming in. I thought he was arrogant. I thought he knew what he was going to do, how he was going to do it, and how it was going to play out, and how he was going to take this to another level, right? And he was going to be heralded for it. I'm not saying he hasn't worked hard and put in a whole bunch of effort. For all accounts, I know that he has. I just believe his motivations behind it, were, I don't think he went about it the right way. I really don't. And so if I think Mark Ingram is just doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on I'm gonna support Trent Dilfer. Nothing like he's been horrible, but I'm gonna support him. So if that is the case, I'm not gonna have much expectations for next year, because he's going to have to show there's nothing Trent Dilfer can say to me at this point to where I'm going to believe him. But I will believe actions. I will believe how you move, and as a coach, like the guys that you decide to get rid of, there has to be a change at the coordinator position. There has to be. You're right, John. Actions speak louder than words. There has to be some changes made in the hires, not only just who you let go, but who you hire. Are you going to hire experience? That's going to be something that you do, right? As a head coach, the guys under you, they need to be able to challenge you, because you don't have enough experience, right? Like, so I don't care if he does another press conference. I don't care. I really don't care what he say. I'm just seeing what he does, and we're going to see how this Charlotte game go. It's again another layup opportunity for a team that's missing their head coach. So we can't overhype if we do finally win on the road. When I'm gonna be looking at this offseason, how we recruit, who we're able to keep, and the changes we make on staff, right? And who we bring in. And then when next year comes, we'll see how he calls the games and if he gets out of his own way, how he talks to John after he loses, after he gets blown out or he says something crazy. Do you take accountability? Do you finally acknowledge the fans, right? Versus saying whatever you say. Like, do you listen? Are you humbled? He probably say he's always been humble. That's BS. Your actions speak louder than what you say. You were not a humble man. You were not. You know, you done got your ass whooped 2 seasons in a row. You should be humble now, and we'll see if he can grow. Because I think we're stuck with him for another year. If we haven't fired him yet, we're I think Mark Ingram is willing to go down swinging with him.
You know, Kevin Wilson, and Biff Poggi, Mr. Sleeveless. Both of those guys had coaching staffs that had some interactions with the fans, like on social media. I think it was the DC for Charlotte. And then Kevin Wilson himself, I believe, had something to say to one of the fan blogs or whatever.
With the podcast, yeah.
With the podcast. Mm-hmm. So there's like this kind of trendy, hey, maybe some of the winning coaches, Dabo Sweeney, I think, had that whole thing on the radio show where he went after some fan or whatever. So it ain't just the losing coaches. But I think Darian's right. We talked about it in our text thread. Whether or not it's going to be successful, we don't know. But what I will say is that I take little to nothing from the end of the season because of the situations. I'll give you an example. Last night, I think I overheard in the Auburn broadcast, they said, I think it was Hugh Freeze's first win against a top 25 team in his 2 years or however long it's been there. Mm-hmm. And like that was an opportunity where it's like, okay, that's something, I don't even care what they do. I don't care about Auburn or Hugh Freeze. I'm just saying like that's like a staple win where you can hang your hat on, especially if they have an opportunity against Alabama, right? Like those are true games in which you can potentially flip the script of like who you are in your position. Beating 2 lame duck programs with interim head coaches is not great. I will say the method in which they beat Rice was what they should have done. They weren't anticipated to win. And they won by whatever it was. Don't make me do math on live podcasting. But they won by 26 points. Thank you, John. If they go out and they beat Charlotte handedly, a game in which they're still not favored, that's good. It's still just hard to – we'll sell it because we're UAB fans. We'll say, hey, 2 straight, first time for Dilfer. Road win, first time for Dilfer. And then there might be some I can anticipate, hey, we were playing better at the end of the year than what we started. I can already kind of hear it. And then we enter the favorite time of the year for coaching staff, which is we just practice. There ain't no games. It's just practice. So we ain't got to talk about nothing but practice in the spring. We'll hear about the guys from the development field that came on that, that's the best in their position group that UAB's possibly ever seen. And then we'll get hyped and we'll do a preseason show and then we'll be here next year for it. And hopefully week 2, I don't know who we play in week 2, but we're going to win that freaking. Hey, we're going to beat
Zips.
Akron. Akron
at home. It's at home week 2 too.
Akron is who I think our only week 2 opponent that we beat. It was on the road.
The big erase or no, what was it like the pencil?
The turnover pencil?
Yeah, I remember that.
See? Okay, so we're already starting to sell it now. Like I feel like we can beat Akron. I don't even know anything about Akron, but I feel like we should be able to beat Akron in week 2. You start off 2-0. You start off 2-0.
Playoffs.
And we might make a bowl game. I know we had a bowl game last week, but we might make a real bowl game.
And then another one this Saturday.
We got out in that too, though. So what does it matter? But like you said, it's ways that you can flip it. You can sell it. The thing is, we shouldn't be getting sold on nothing. No words should say. If you're a UAB fan, you should know by now that Trent is a pretty good salesman. He's a pretty good talker. He had the ESPN. You'll hear all the accolades about being on the sled.
He sold Mark.
Huh?
He sold Mark.
Yeah, it's all bark. So none of that stuff should hold any weight. If you're a guy, if we've grown as a fan base, so if you've grown, you should be like, dude, I don't care. I don't care. And then you can say that this guy, y'all talked about how we had the best running back trio, right? And we talk about Zeno. I don't know where Isaiah Jacobs been at. I'm pretty sure he's going to get the medical and, red shirt and he's transferring. And then the other guy, number 7, Goodwin. Yeah. He didn't, the other trio, he didn't even play. I don't even know what happened to him. He didn't even play. It's been Lee Beebe, all Lee Beebe featuring Lee Witherspoon. That's not what we. And then you throw in Solomon Beebe. We didn't expect for him to even play. So I'm not listening to anything. And all of the stuff we heard about so many different players is kind of like, dude, what are we doing? So hey, I'm going to see who they pick up, who they can close the deal on. How they recruit is going to be interesting. We kind of got an idea on what we think they're going to do recruiting wise. And I'm interested in hearing, man, we look like this. Man, we look like, don't DM me. Don't talk about none of this stuff. I do not care. I promise I don't. We'll see who they let go and who they bring on. And then we'll see next week, in week 1 when we face some SWAC team, and then in week 2 when we face Akron. Can we beat Akron?
2-0, baby.
How do we beat Akron? Who's going to be our quarterback? Are we going to throw 45 times, or are we going to feed the beast? What are we going to do? So we got a long time to see. And I honestly feel like if we got these same results of this year, mid-year, he better be out of here. Mid-year next year, he better be out of here.
That buyout doesn't become 2.4 till end of next year. The whole buyout situation, I think it's just guaranteed. It's a fully guaranteed contract, so it's like $100K per. So whatever you do, it's just you're going to pay the $100K per month for the rest of the contract. That's a sweet deal.
Hey, but if he come through, I mean, if he's humble, I've seen people grow. We're gonna go back to growth, John. I had to grow before. We've all been in these moments when we have to take accountability and actually really learn from our mistakes. He's going to have that opportunity. It's going to be, unfortunately, for a lot of people, it's unfortunately, but he's going to have that opportunity. It could still be a good thing for us. Could be. Don't quote me into saying that, man, it's going to happen. I'm not selling you that. I'm saying that there's a possibility of it. Am I banking on that? I am not. Will I be happy if it is? I will. So we'll see.
Oh, yeah. Well, we didn't get around to talk about the basketball program, but hopefully they'll get it together sooner than later, too. But on that note, I guess we will wrap. Listeners, hope everybody has a happy Thanksgiving. Safe travels if y'all are traveling. Share the Blaze Victory podcast with your family. What was I going to say? Oh, actions speak louder than words. That is the theme of this episode. And we will see you guys next week after Charlotte. As always, just Blaze.